Check, check, check. Check. Yay! My beautiful face. Yeah, all the better to distract from my lack of hair. I have completely just I've accepted balding, and I'm just every other morning I just shave it off. Oh, it's from the left only. Fuck. All right, hold on. Check, check. Is that better? Nope. Okay, hold on. It's always something. Okay, check. Is that better? Dr. Diggs is here. How did how did you find my Twitch? Okay. Ayo, were you waiting for Hidden Cup to didn't know you played AoE. I don't really play AoE. I just kind of want to have something on here going while I talk. But um so yeah, so wow, we have 53 viewers. Pretty cool. So we are working on Symphony of War 2, right? We haven't done like big press announcements or anything like that, just a small thing in Steam. But I think it's such a long-term project that it's totally appropriate, I think, that we kind of, you know, I mean, people say, well, you got to build hype. You got to build hype, 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 hype. Well, let's do that when we actually have some footage to show, right? Some really stuff actually finished, right? So now we have a gigantic game design document and a dream, and well, a fully finished story script. That's done, right? Um, so yeah, we'll just talk about the. I am much more hype when I have things to see. Yeah, yeah. So we'll talk about a couple of the things that we plan on changing up. Um, so one of the is is the game audio coming through? Is there any game audio at all? I'm gonna get killed. Speaking of which, I'm actually just gonna turn the sound completely down here. All right. Okay. Playing AoE 2 and talking about complicated things at the same time is not possible. I'm not sure what I thought I would accomplish by doing that, but okay, we don't need game audio. That's fine. Okay. So if there's anything you have questions about, just type it in. I'll try and catch up. First time chat from Anthony Sausages. Okay. Oh, I already read that. Yeah, if there's any questions about what we're doing, so we are going to do. So there's some things that we're like 100% on, right? We are 100% on tier 4. So, and that's for like the human units that we all know and love, like the soldier, fighter, soldier, sentinel, and then we're gonna have tier 4. Like we're just gonna keep moving down that deeper specialization, right? We know that. We know we're gonna have a naval meta where you will be able to embark on ships in maps that have navigable water tiles on them, and you will use those ships to bombard land, take over other ships, destroy other ships. Hey, Kush Look, long time no see. How's it going? The Decon, familiar name there. Happy to hear more at SO2 info. Yep. And this is not going to be a super long stream. I just want to talk about a couple of things that we're sure about, and then other things that we're not so sure about, and then maybe get some feedback. The way that I take feedback is basically, if it gives you a stomach ache, then there's probably something wrong with it. Now, the answers to how to fix that stomach ache is really hard to come up with, even for seasoned game developers. So we're not necessarily going to develop the game on stream right now, but we are going to bounce some things off of you and see how it feels. Right? Like think about it and see how some of these ideas, try and picture yourself going through it. Right? I'm just gonna get Loom right away because I want to go after some boars. I'm also on hard, so I'm probably gonna get like absolutely wiped out here. What am I doing? All right, so we have tier 4. I can't do both. It's too much. It's too much mental energy. Been doing well. I saw the ping. Carry on, good sir. Seraphim. I'm working on the waist piece to the medic cosplay. Oh, okay, cool. Zeroxen, how many tier 4s will there be? Good question. So some tier 4s. So you know how with like tier 2 to tier 3, you often have a branching specialization, right? You can go from soldier to champion, or you can go from soldier to sentinel, right? Or you can go soldier to knight. With tier 4, some of them will reconverge back to a super specialist, or they will just go straight up, or they will continue to branch out. In the case of the sword master, the tier 3, female light infantry double attacker, we actually have 3 light infantry melee attackers that can branch off to. Currently, it's 2 of them actually that we've settled on. The spell sword and the dancer. And the dancer is a dual-wielding class that continues to retain the agility and attack power of the swordmaster, but has a mechanic where when they dodge, and they will dodge often, they will automatically counterattack on the enemy's turn. So that's a new thing that we're going to do. Hopefully we want to be able to do it, is have an instant counterattack, right? This SO2 Alpha build footage is looking awful familiar. Haha, very funny. Any incentives for keeping units in lower tier unit types? That's a good question. Incentives to keeping lower tier units. So a lot of that is just dealing with cost. We are drastically changing the unit capacity cost scenario. And that's what we're going to talk about today. That's the thing that we're kind of thinking about. First time chat from Captain Anium. Hey, Phil, long time no see. Hope you're having a blast. Well, looking forward to it. Welcome. We have the old hi girl. Hey, from MD Yomi. Lurkermeyer, there you are. Love the further branching specialization. I'm a bit nervous that certain ones will become the obvious meta winners. Well, that's like always anything in any game. Oh, I thought there was an ice cream truck outside, but I think it's actually my kid playing. Hold on, let me shut my door here real quick. Okay, we're back. I think SOW does a good job at making all units viable. Yeah, I mean, the meta seems to be settling on, in SOW1, get just enough cavalry to become cavalry movement, and then put other stuff in there to fill in the gaps. Like, people really like to use a few units, basically Centurions for offensive heavy infantry. They turned out, I didn't know that they would be this good. They would turn out to be like insanely good on offense. Sentinels and Paladins for tanking, and let's see, Valkyries for general use. Valkyries, people like to use Valkyries just to like get cavalry movement, just because they can also heal, and they have map healing. And then you have your 9 archer squads that you never get hit with. Right? So there is definitely a settled meta, but that's fair. It's totally not a problem. Symphony of War 1's been out for a year and a half now. It's a mature game. People have figured everything out. There's no mystery there. So, gosh, this is hard. I need to I'm reading and I'm getting old, so I'm like having a hard time seeing all the way over there in the Twitch chat. Maybe I should just not play the game and switch Twitch over to this monitor and talk here because I'm not playing the game anyway. All right, much better. First time. Oh wait. Except for Spearman, changed my mind. Keck. Spearmen are good. Yeah, resource management and so squad capacity being affected by tier, maybe lending itself to... I don't think we're going to do affected by tier. I don't like that because it punishes progress. So we're not going to do that. Lurker Meyer said, yo, glad to see a stream, Phil. Looking good. Really? Really? Is it my bald chrome dome here that people are digging? Right? When you discuss changing the capacity cost, can you talk about what spurred drastic changes? Well, thank you for the question. It's a good one. So what spurred the change was we never really liked the way it turned out in Symphony of War 1. And as you can see, it's not that hard for an the average player to get to the 9 death balls by like 2/3 of the way through the game. You can just keep piling on more leadership. And we wanted to have leadership catch-up mechanics that get you, from lower to a decent amount. That's why we cut off the leadership consumable at 70. But that's also already enough with compounding capacity cost lowering, like the loyalty. You have soldier, captain, you have captain traits, and then you have capacity increasing artifacts, stuff like that. So, and then you have capacity increasing technology too. So there's so many compounding factors that ended up making it kind of just a chore to do. Like, I got to get this and this and this, and then now I have my 9 death ball. Now I can start making my squad. That takes away the meaningful decision making. Like you should have meaningful decision making as far as like, okay, I can only put 5 guys in here, 6 guys in this one. So that's why I think the game gets significantly less fun when it's later. Like I love Symphony of War 1 and the first 18 chapters, right? And then for me it gets less fun after that because you're built, right? So what changed? So there's that, and also we just wanted to make the decision more meaningful. I hope that answers the question. First time chat from Drexasaur. Very excited for Symphony of War 2. Would love to get a few maps that we can deploy troops to and host online as bonus content maps. Yeah, we're actually rebuilding the engine we're building the game in a different engine for a Switch port. So I definitely don't want to make this kind of promise, but there's a chance that we could actually just use that for future installments. It's a possibility, and that would make stuff like that modding community, which we definitely want to have, a lot easier. We want to have a Steam workshop that has 1,000 custom maps on it, right? That people have made, right? First time chat from IDCRS826 eagerly waiting for this game. I placed a demo on Steam Deck during chat. Oh yeah, Steam Deck. I think Steam Deck might be the best way to play Symphony of War. It looks so good on Steam Deck. Zero Sins, Champion Swordmasters for bod. Champions and Swordmasters are phenomenal single target DPS for sure. Cleve Wizard says Valks carry hard mid game in a lot of my runs. Yeah, Valks are just good. They're like no weakness. It's funny if you want to go. Captain Anium says it's funny if you want to go with T3 Spear Infantry. You never want to go Spearmen, but rather Footmen. You mean the soldier? Soda Man Onzo says cannons and rifles. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot more of those firearm type units. Dragoons are so good. First time chat from President Zealot. Any plans for units that do buffs like healing shields, adding buff capacity? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of buff, debuff stuff is going to be added into the meta. Amelia Clark's eyebrows. I'm so glad you're here just because of your name. I love that. Seraphim says, I just wish I could have 9 Dragon Riders. Yep. Zero Sin Save Me. I usually stop my playthroughs after chapter 18. Now I just am done building my 15 to 20 teams. Yeah, that's why we're trying to greatly extend. We're gonna do 2 things. We are gonna slow down the existing progress just a bit because I think in terms of leadership gain and capacity gain, that's too fast, and probably also CP gain is too fast to get through those tiers. But we're not. But that slowdown will be quite small compared to we will extend what you can do with it, right? So we hope that you get to chapter 20, you get to chapter 24-ish, your army is built. We hope that given that same amount of playtime, that it would be more like chapter 30, right? That you would be done building your army, so that you have maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 big epic end game maps where you're pretty much done, but like you want to use that stuff against really, really, really hard boss fights and stuff like that. So that's what our goal is, right? So I think Tier 4 is one of the most important distinctions that we're going for. And it's one of the things that we're 100% on. We're going to do it. We're already getting graphics for it. We're already designing the classes. So Switch port is hype? Yes. A cookie without friends. Will the second game have sort of auto battle feature? Are you talking about like delegating unit movement in the tactical map? Because every battle's an auto battle, but maybe you're talking about something else. Clarify, please. The Deacon Erudite says, an idea regarding the late game slowdown, a method of prestiging your squads into like general army power once you complete them, while extremely high concept and I imagine very hard to do properly, might be a vague route to go. Might get way too gamey though. Prestiging your squad. Field cannons with Lysander. Yeah, that's a strong squad. About this prestige, maybe have it be conceptualized as pivoting to a different commander that is then fostering up their own individuals. So like the squad gets built up and then like delegated off, and then individual stuff, and then you've got your completed armies reserved, but way kind concept. Let's see. Dillinator, are we getting any goth mommies this time around? Oh, my game crashed. Whatever. We'll just have a black screen. Whatever. You know what? No. What we're going to do is have a world map from Symphony of War 2 in the background. So let me edit the scene here. There we go. That looks good. All right, we're back. So, goth mommies, yeah. So, Dillinator, if you're in our what the fuck's going on here? If you're in our Discord, the SOW2 teasers channel it's a read only, but it's got graphics of some characters that we put in there. I think there's a couple of characters that could be described as goth mommies, but not really goth so much as like kind of like maybe biker gang or like pirate, so Dr. Diggs says a cookie without friends, maybe talking like some of the auto battling features that they have in the Fire Emblem mobile game might be good for you. Oh yeah, you're talking about the tactical map plays out automatically, kind of like as if your guys were green and the AI just controls it. Maybe, yeah, like rally points. And then just instead of having to move each squad, all your guys just go. I think that's actually on. We have a huge list of stuff. It's probably on there already. Retinue, retune. Draxosaurus says retune. What word does that mean? Builders, perhaps. Are you talking about like static fortifications? Captain Onium says, I don't like normal cans very much. Field cans are a direct upgrade. Yeah. That's, they just do less damage. That's the only thing. But that's why they're going to be tiered sequentially, tier 2 and tier 3, just like they are now. That's how they're going to be tiered in Symphony War 2. With the right tech and a few Praetorians up front. Praetorians? Like Sentinels? They are blazing fast as light cavalry, and they can take out pesky supports and archers. Yeah, something like that. As mentioned, probably just the system is trying to... Goth Mommy's too strong. Those 2 characters that I mentioned could pass as Goth Mommies. They're pretty awesome. Just saying. Cleave Wizard. Any thoughts on classes that use split stats similar to Dragons or Lords post-event? Just real quick, for folks that didn't make it to the beginning of the stream, this is Dev Stream. We're talking about what we're doing. I'm also asking if you haven't left a thumbs up for us on Steam, please do. Admittedly, like if we get to 10,000, we will get to 10,000 eventually, but I want to get to 10,000 in the overwhelmingly positive. It's just, it's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen. But after that point, I will admit, if we go down to the very positive instead of overwhelming positive after hitting 10,000, I don't care. Right? I just want to get to 10 grand with OP and then take a screenshot and then I'm good. So, but it is a very small way for you to support us going forward, right? Just to get your feedback in there, your honest feedback, please. And if you have things that you want to point out to us specifically, the best way to do that is to be in our Discord and have conversations with us. Hey Milo, welcome. Any thoughts on classes that use split stats similar to Dragons or Lords post event? Yeah. Well, we have one class that is an upgrade from, it's tier 4 from Swordmaster. It's the Spell Sword. So they're going to be, basically, they take the offensive and evasive power of the Spell Sword and then add elemental ability to it. So it could be bouncing off of the mages that you have in your squad, or similarly in a squad next to you, or based on their magic stat, right? So yeah, we'll have more of that. Although not a ton, because the whole point of Symphony of War is your units are like equipment in an RPG, right? Where they'll all do one thing. Sometimes they'll do two things, like a samurai does two things, right? Milo says, yo, what did I miss? Well, I started playing AoE 2 for a little bit, and then I figured out there's no way I can talk coherently and play AoE 2. It's just too much mental energy. It would have to be like a brain-dead game, like, I don't know, like Vampire Survivors or something, and then I could talk and play at the same time. Not AoE 2. It's just, I can't even play AoE 2 and not talk. Like, I don't have enough brain power to do just AoE 2, right? So... Zero Sin says, whoa, first time to see the whole Tanra map, ha ha ha. Well, this is a different map than in Symphony of War 1. Different one. Tripod Faye, first time chat, just joined the stream. Love the game. I would like to know if there's some rogue assassin types coming. Then, some new, we're going to have the ninja, which I don't know how OP this is going to be, but the ninja on offense will go ahead and do their 2 attacks in stealth mode, and then they will just poof from the battle, disappear for the rest of the battle. That's the concept that we have for the ninja. So that sounds awesome to me, because the assassin's weakness is whenever they get counterattacked, they're super squishy, right? Yep, so ninja, gone. Let's see, what else? Rogue assassin. Some of the other light infantry upgrades are going to be pretty cool, like the aforementioned spell sword, the dancer. A cookie without friends. I meant what Dr. Diggs said. Yeah. Druxosaurus says retinue. I still don't get it. What does retinue builders mean? Seraphim says, will we get to see some Skyborn and more Baraktor? Yes. Not a couple more Baraktor. We have one, one Baraktor story character, and then we have a few classes, not like a whole tree though, of the cat guys. So Skyborn, yes, Skyborn will have quite an impact on at least the story mode in Symphony of War 2 for sure. They're a major part of it. Druxosaurus says, as in units that get intrinsically tied to their squad leader. Oh, okay. Is that like I can't think of anything that would be like. There's one story character that does that, so it's a mechanic that exists. I'm not sure about classes that do that, but it can exist. So, Advil, glad you're here. Random topic list if you feel like picking any to discuss. T1 Cavalry, potential player customized units, possible forging salvaging, any slated NG plus changes, general trait and artifact changes. Advil, do you have all day? Okay. I'll go back to your post. I'll pin it, and I'll pin it. Okay. And we'll get to some of that stuff. Will SOW2 be essentially just a finished chapter, or are we going to get a map? Yeah, of course you're going to get different challenge types. Bro, all reviews at 9569 overwhelmingly positive right now. Y'all will definitely get there. Yeah, we'll get to 10,000. I know for sure. I just want to make sure that it's in the 95% plus range when we get to 10,000. And after that, if it continues to go down very, very slowly as it has been, then we will probably eventually end up at 94% overall, which is very positive and not overwhelmingly positive. So we're just so close to 10,000. So I just want to get there. And then if we fall below that after hitting 10,000, it's all good. A lot of very good games are at like 88%, right? So whatever. I'm curious if the success of it has changed how you approach the development of SOW2. Not really. I guess it's a mandate that we should make this game, but not. I don't think we would have not made it anyway. We were gonna make it anyway. So I'm gonna answer that question as a straight up no. Does it affect it? The success means that we have more valuable feedback that we can use to help us design the game for sure, and probably more support going in, testing, and whatever other forms of support. And maybe if we do some kind of crowdfunding for the crazy dreams that I have for this installment. But no, we would have made the game anyway. So Deacon Erudite says Vampire Survivor is a kick-ass game mechanics engine. If you like to call it, plenty of games that can propel themselves purely on their loop rather than compelling narrative. Yeah, for sure. Rogue says, gotta stay away for a few. Thanks for keeping in touch with us. Really appreciate the transparency. Good luck. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Tem 1UP. Any class ideas wish you could implement if you didn't have to balance the game? Yes. Actually, that might seem like an off-the-wall question, but it's not. It's a good question. We originally planned on having super units. So units that look like a thing. Basically, the final boss of the first game is a super unit. It's one thing, it's one being, but it has several parts. We scrapped the idea because it's not really part of the spirit of Symphony of War. It's really more of a Fire Emblem kind of thing, right? So, but the idea of having one character that's just so powerful that's doesn't fit within the realm of armies was kind of the goal there. But we scrapped that. Milo says, Hui, good luck, healers, peace, ninja poofs before the counterattack. Yes. First time chat from Exanilla. I really enjoyed Lysander as a character and the topics he spoke about. Wondering if we'll see more like that. World philosophy, theology, etc. Yes. So the story for Symphony of War 2 has... I would say it's a bigger story. It's a much better story. The characters are probably the biggest improvement. The central cast, the Band of Friends central cast is, I can't wait to show this off. They're very likable. They bounce off of each other very well. And then there's a huge diversity of personalities, backgrounds, even species, right? So you have more erudite, just like our Deacon erudite characters who would go into more things like that. Though, of course, stuff like that is optional conversations. You don't want to put then this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, or my personal philosophy in mandatory cutscenes, because there's actually very limited screen time. With all of the story elements that you see on the screen here, almost the entire map is actually utilized. So, in this particular installment, take everything from that little peninsula that says Emborian Tundra. Everything east of that, we're not going to go there, but everything west of that we're gonna go there, right? So there's a lot of countries, factions, shifting alliances, different story arcs that focus on a different character, right? So, excuse me. I could go on about that subject forever, but let's move on. Ninja sounds super broken. Excited to play it with Symphony of War One of my favorite things is being able to target the leader of the comps. Would hope the rogue assassin classes excel in that aspect. Well, we are going to do individual tactics. So another way to be able to mess with your units is you're going to be able to go in, and instead of just in the middle of battle choosing aggressive, cautious, or target leader or whatever, you're going to have passive unit orders. Maybe unlockable, or maybe just automatic. Excuse me. Shit, I'm out of water. Okay. So they'll just execute their orders in that way. So that's a little bit more of a power gamer thing, but I think it'll be really cool. Captain Nathaniel says, any plans to adjust unit movement? Like, feel like light infantry cavalry are just way too good. No, I think that's the way it should be. Maybe cavalry. Cavalry is going to be, you won't be able to have death balls of cavalry in Symphony of War 2. So their movement is necessary. They need to be able to do that to take advantage of the fact that they won't be able to marshal as much raw power as an infantry squad, right? In Symphony of War 1, they pretty much can. Like, you can just get 9 Valkyries or something, right? Absolutely could use more characters like Lysander. They add a great deal of texture to the military and political tapestry of the world. Yeah, absolutely. This story, I would say, plays a little bit more like a JRPG for the first half of it. Like, it's more personal and it's more of an adventure or a romp than a big political war drama. But then it eventually turns into that, right? But all of that stuff that happens in the first half is building to that political war drama that it eventually turns into. And it's within the context of the drama that's happening in the background, right? So, first time chat from Seth92. Made it to the stream. Had to install the app on my iPad, but oh, by the way, let me finish the thing about more characters like Lysander. There is a massive amount of lore that can just go into this. There's not a massive amount of screen time that we have to convey it, right? And also there's not a massive amount of translating that we want to do of just tons and tons and tons of lore entries in a journal or something, right? But, in the Wikipedia, perhaps, we can put all that stuff in there, right? But there's tons of, like, if, just looking at the map that we're looking at right now, I could go into, like, the features of each of these regions and the history and how it affects the reason that there's this, let's do one quick one of those. Like, let's see. The Ostgard River. Are you able to see my mouse moving around here? This is the Ostgard River, and it's the eastern border to the Donari Empire, and east of here is hostile terrain, basically. Either wilderness or hostile terrain. And so that's why you have Embor Palace here was kind of like the frontier of, of the Donari Empire. So you also have, over on the east, you have a giant marsh, a giant mountain range, and a giant icy tundra that separates it from the eastern promised land that you see kind of on the far east continent. You see, a habitable area there that's behind a great deal of inhabitable, hostile land, right? And so that really shapes the kind of isolation of these two civilizations. Try to imagine kind of like this is Korea or China during the Edo period, right? Versus, Europe and the rest of the world that is, in our timeline, more enterprising and conquering and conquesting and colonizing, right? Whereas the Eastern kingdoms during that time were a lot more isolated, partially because of geography, right? They're just so far away. They're separated by oceans. They're separated by mountains and deserts, right? So there's that. I could go on that for days, but I will stop myself there. Okay, continuing on with Seth92, made it to the stream, had to install the app on my iPad, but I'm here. Have you thought about adding an endless mode challenge tower for after endgame? We're actually thinking about adding that to mid to late game. Like, you've earned the ability to grind once you get to a certain point. Like, we're going to just blow the game open. And we might actually add something like that in there, like a roguelike tower. I love the idea of a roguelike tower where you take your army, it doesn't heal in between missions, and you just go as high as you can, right? Any chance we will see more flying units like Pegasus or Wyverns? Yeah, they're going to be skyborne in the game, and they're winged humanoids. Dr. Diggs says, I would love to see more love for the jaguar, behemoth, other creatures. Yeah, so we do have a beast meta that's planned. We don't have a lot of beasts made yet, but yeah, the big cats are coming back. We're going to have giant turtles, more dragons. We're going to have giants, these big ogre type things. So yeah, beast meta is going to be a thing, and they will grow and customize differently than sapient humanoid character as well. Will we, Seraphim says, will we get to see any of the characters from Symphony of War? That's a spoiler, I will not say. Amelia Clark's eyebrows in before S2's message is Casimir did nothing wrong. Well, I will say that's not the message, right? I don't like intentionally ironic stories, right? That are like, you thought this, but actually you're dumb. It was this. You're wrong, right? And so it's like, no, I don't like making people feel like they were completely duped and surprised. And people are rarely ever surprised by stories these days, right? It's more about like people have to kind of put themselves in the mindset to actually enjoy a story because there's just so many and everything has been done. So I don't like that kind of like, oh, by the way, Lindvoa was the bad guy, right? I don't like doing that. Some things should just be what they are, and you just leave it at that. You don't try and rehash the past, and do this whole like remake thing where it's like, oh, Cloud Strife was the bad guy, and Sephiroth was the good guy, right? That's like, come on, no, Sephiroth was the bad guy, right? So, anyway. President Zealot says, maybe an odd question, but will there be characters with deeper requirements for recruiting them, like needing to take actions across one or more stages than the... Yes, we're going to have multi-stage side quests that will involve character acquisition in the late game, for sure. Captain Antium says, I will also want to ask if you'll improve the graphics. Why is it not letting me? Okay, going into Symphony. I would love to introduce my dad to them, but he has very bad sight. Has a hard time distinguishing between units. Yeah, so that's one of the subjects I want to talk about. Specifically, that we are actually wanting feedback on, and we're stumped. We're stumped on it. Is the resolution? We are able to mostly increase the resolution. But if we increase the resolution and we don't increase the pixel graphics, that makes them even smaller on your screen if you blow it up to full screen, right? So we're debating 540p versus 720p versus 1080p. 1080p is very unlikely. More likely it's to be 540 or 720. Right now, Symphony of War 1 is actually in 480, which is really weird, right? So it would be 960 by 540, or it would be 1280 by 720. And then we would, for the large resolution, either of those modes would slot nicely into just 2xing the pixels into large mode and make the pixels twice the size, because most monitors are either 1080 or 1440p, right? So 720 perfectly slots into 1440. 540 perfectly slots into 1080. But the problem with 720 is that, again, we have these beautiful pixel art battlers that would become smaller on the screen because of the larger resolution, and we can't interpolate those up because it looks terrible. Games that do that, no, they don't look good. So, I think my daughter has a play date going on downstairs. A bunch of kids downstairs yelling. I don't know if you guys can hear kids yelling downstairs. I'm way behind here. Is that map the entire world stretched on a map, or is there more to it, like another continent? I mean, this is probably the entire world. Yeah, so for the purposes of this game. Exanilla, that's an insane amount of coverage. That's awesome. Thanks for answering my question. Definitely wishing and eager to release. Good luck. Yeah, I need to get the Steam page up so we can start wish listing it. Even though there's like no press on it, because we don't want to do press on it yet. We'll just have it be able to wish list it. President Zell says, "Oh no, my beloved Barnabas Deathball." Yeah. Zaracin says, "Please let us create other non-horse cavalries. Let me ride my tiger thing." Yeah, you can do that in this Symphony of War one, can't you? I don't know, maybe. Maybe there will be behemoth riders. We'll see. Excuse me. Will we get to explore the towns a bit as well? Sorry, I've come back and played oh, you mean like our previous games? Yeah. So in a sense, yes, because the world map is going to be navigable. Like, so you'll see, like, does that work? Are you? Can somebody say if are you able to see my mouse moving around when I do this? Just no mouse. Okay, never mind. All right, so you see like a bunch of little towns there. In think back to like Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics. You have a world map in those games, and you have strong points and points of key interest that are either wilderness or towns or with castles or whatever. And they'll be just like that. You'll be able to walk around. There'll be some side quests, some other things like shops and arenas that are going to be placed on the world map, right? So in a sense, you'll walk to the town, and then you'll go click on that. That's where you'll find like the conscription shop and the market and stuff like that, right? So it kind of has that fantasy RPG feel, Where am I? Shit, I lost my spot. Deacon Aries says, even Tactics Over FF had enormous amounts of things that were all happening around the world, but it would be referenced here, but if you want to properly learn about it, had to dig into logs and stuff. Yeah, definitely. Miles says, don't see the mouse. Okay, Seraphim says, we'll have more people like Kesh. Like that are cursed to become turtle men? No, he's one of a kind. Tripod Face says, this is main monitor content. I am irrationally passionate about this. Has been devouring Institute links today. Right on. Yeah. Thanks for being here. So short of a wish list on Steam, just stay on our Discord. Just stay there. And mute it if you need to. That's fine. Decon Erudite, gaslighted into accepting the world doesn't agree with the barest, most basic measurements of morality. This ish is insufferable. I like opting into theory crafting, but making that a cornerstone of your story can almost feel insulting to players who fought to defeat evil in the previous title. Well said. Gaslit into accepting the world doesn't agree with the barest most. Can you come up with an example of that, Decon Erudite? Like, are you talking like Star Wars Episode 8? Which I shit on that movie in every single stream. Advil says, please make said multi-step recruitments not require me to Google the process. I'm looking at you, Tactics Ogre. Yes, we don't like forcing people to go to the guide before playing the game. Please do not do that, and we will design the game so you don't ever have to do that. Tripod Face says, was there a rehaul to the item system? In Symphony of War, items seemed like an afterthought to the comp of the teams you ran rather than an important system, sort of a power gaming aspect. Great point. Kind of, sort of, but we're going to talk about that in more depth later. Same question with resources on the maps. Yeah, same thing. Milo says, SW proved that playing the story straight with no subversion was more surprising and fresh than filling it with random subversions like more modern stories are doing. Yeah, that's that's actually that's great to hear. I really like to hear. That's flattery, because that's people think that I'm like pushing something, like the organized religion in Symphony of War 1 that is clearly an analog of Christianity, right? It's not meant to be Christianity, but it's kind of an analog of Christianity. Monotheism, and there's a temple, and there's priests and stuff like that. It's not evil. It's weird. Yeah, they have like eugenic stuff going on. It's weird, but it's not evil. It's not like they're not the ones that are doing the child kidnappings and stuff, right? They're the ones fighting against it with all like their last drop of blood. They're the ones fighting against, they're the ones sacrificing everything to try and stop the evil stuff going on, right? Same thing with, the main character. The main character, spoilers, does do a couple of very questionable things later on. But the main character is not evil. The main character is flawed, right? So, I'm not going to be like, it turns out that Lindvoa was the bad guy. It's like that, like just my listen. I think that would be more predictable than if he just played it straight these days, right? So, and yeah, the people going around kidnapping kids, they're the bad guys, right? So, and they're going to stay the bad guys, right? So, let's see. Same question. Okay. Exanilla says, "Oh, one last burning question regarding the romances pairing. Uh-oh. Will they be more relevant to their place in the story this time around? They kind of felt out of place sometimes, immaturely so, but not all. Like Sybil Barnabas, Silas Abigail, you know." I gotta push back on Sybil Barnabas. I don't care. I know that there's an age difference there, but it's 45 and 27. We've gone over this a million times. I don't want to go too into that. Yeah, that's an age difference there, but like that's still two consenting adults, and that's actually the chemistry between those two was so strong that I just put it in. Like I just thought it was good chemistry. You have an older guy, who's only not that much older than I am, right? But he's stable. He's a working guy. He's a conscripted man throughout his life, and he's got a family farm, and he's not rich, but he's very stable. He's very solid, right? Whereas you have a Sybil who is not at all stable. She's kind of like self-sabotaging. She's always trying to prove herself. She's got an inferiority complex, and she's quick to temper, and but then she also has like a huge heart. Like she's really, really passionate about her friends and her country and stuff like that. So the two made such a good couple. I don't really care. Like it works. It just works, right? In terms of Zealous Abigail, yeah, that one's look. I know people have been shitting on me so hard regarding the romance stories. We didn't know Symphony of War would get as popular as it was. And so I didn't think that people would put that much stock into it because, you know what? Neither did we. No, we didn't. We said that Fire Emblem does it, so we should do it too. And we didn't say that about anything else. We developed Symphony of War to reflect the game that we want to make. Yes, I am a big Fire Emblem fan. Yes, I am a big Ogre Battle fan. Yes, Mithrin is a big tactics ogre. But we didn't design any of these systems because Fire Emblem did it, except for the romances. We definitely just did that because they did it, right? So yeah, it is tacked on. It's absolutely tacked on. That's the developer saying it's tacked on. So what we're gonna do is not. We're going to do something that I want to do something that I'm inspired by, right? Not something that should go in. And if I'm not inspired by it, it's just not going to go in. It's just not. We're not going to do like this whole meat market, like anyone can pair up with anybody kind of thing. In fact, I think probably romances will be less common, but you'll have more bonds, platonic bonds or familial bonds that will be more common, right? Frankly, the characters in Symphony of War 2, it does not lend itself to a lot of romance. It just doesn't. Just the amount of inappropriate relationships between all these characters. You have a lot of outside of family, of course, but you have, because we're not actually Kaga, right? We're not doing that. But outside of father figures, right? That's inappropriate, right? Or colleagues, boss, employee, that kind of relationship, that's inappropriate, right? So there's a lot of inappropriate, possible romances happening. Whereas in the first game, actually, most people were just kind of freely available. You didn't have a lot of these power dynamics or like parental figures or boss employee or anything like that, right? So, we're going to make a system. I think it'll be an improvement, right? Don't get too hung up on I want to have this be a visual novel that's like dating sim. It ain't going to be that. I'm sorry. It ain't going to be that. I'm not a romance writer. And we don't, that's not something that we want to make, right? We want to make a war drama, tactics war game. That's what we want. That's what we like. We just happen to, Mithrin doesn't care about story, but I happen to be, I love personal dramas and I love how they develop. And I love forming the friendships and the bonds and the camaraderie that I think will form through these, going through tribulations together. So it will be a thing and it will be better. but you won't get as much saucy, cheesy romance, okay? And you don't want that anyway. You guys, I'm seeing the negative reviews talking about how shitty the romance things are. Okay, fine. We're just not going to do those. We're just not going to do this because I'm not good at writing those, right? I could hire somebody to write the romance, but then it's in a completely different voice than what I've written for the story, right? Which, frankly, is a lot better than the Symphony of War one, right? It's because that's what I know how to write. Right. So, people cannot be fooled these days. I don't think most companies respect their customers or respect their customers' intelligence nearly enough. You guys are not foolable, right? People can sense bullshit. People can sense even insincerity in design. Like, oh, they didn't really want to do this, right? And so I want to respect our supporters and players and not insult your intelligence. By designing something that like oh, okay, wow, they really loved this system. They really thought about this one, right? And I want you to say that about everything that we do, right? So, boy, I'm going on too much about that one. I hope that answered that question. Probably not. Excuse me. Captain NEM says, if it'll be released on Switch, it's likely that I'll play it on their 4K TVs. Correct. I don't think that's it's only if you dock it, I don't think every game needs to have the ultra realistic 3D graphics that need 4090 to run properly, but at least not look ugly on large screens. Right. So that would be probably, you would want 1080 or 720 at the smallest to accomplish that. Right. Okay. We're way behind here. Lurkermeyer says, but what happened to the mouse? No mouse. Okay. A cookie without friends says background eyes can be okay. Boy, we're like 30 minutes behind. Deacon Erudite, damn, Star Wars Last Jedi is an excellent example that wasn't even top of my mind there, but yeah, it suits a decent part of my point. Clearly, the writer is championing letting go of the past because the only good must come from change. Right. And guess what? In real life, sometimes change is good, sometimes change is not good, right? Like, look, I don't think that with Star Wars that they should have just rehashed. Like, no, I don't think that like all this nostalgia and stuff. I don't think that that's actually what people want. They say they want it, but I don't think you would like that. And also, it wouldn't get any buzz going. People want new stuff, but they want it to be within the context of like, oh, this actually is in the Star Wars universe, right? They don't want it to be nonsensical. They don't want Luke Skywalker to be pathetic, right? Because for all intents and purposes, he had defeated all of his foes. He saved his father. He was the one guy who didn't want to kill Darth Vader. He was the one guy in the whole universe. Not even Princess Leia, his daughter, was nearly on board with that, right? And he had an opportunity to kill Darth Vader, and he said, at the risk of his own life, he said no. You'll have to kill me first. And that's Luke freaking Skywalker, a hero who is above all things moral, right? And noble. And how did he turn from that into the garbage that he is in the sequel trilogy? That just doesn't make any sense. Now, he can go through some trauma, but he should still act like Luke Skywalker. He should act like Luke Skywalker with trauma. He shouldn't act like this random old guy. Yeah, he'll be old, but he'll be a noble old guy. And his ability to control the Force should be he should be able to move planets with his mind, right? So, whatever. Yeah, you need to do new stuff, but if in the context that people are familiar with, right? So, blah, 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 blah. Or the insinuation that not even the OG Jedi Order, but Luke Skywalker and his new order, we are in need of being replaced. Yeah, and that's a thing that you can explore, is that maybe the Jedi Order, as it was a mistake. And I actually think if you look at the first 3 Star Wars movies, I do think the Jedi Order was very much at fault for a lot of things. They were kind of like these and ivory tower elites that were gods that basically, acted outside of the purview of the official government, right? Like they seemed like they were just an unelected group of gods that decided the fate of the universe, which is very anti-democratic. And I think that they made a lot of mistakes in judgment, which led to the events of the, episodes 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, I think that they needed to be wiped out and rebuilt, right? But just to say that the whole entire concept of a Jedi Order is wrong, that seems like it doesn't fit the Star Wars universe at all. The Star Wars universe is what the magic that drew people to it was, like the magic of the Force. It's like this force of good that's in everybody, right? It's not supposed to be subversive. It's not supposed to be like you're inherently evil or that like belief in the Force is flawed or evil. No, it's supposed to be this is life, this is goodness, this is renewal, right? So, okay. This is an hour-long stream already, but I just keep talking. Amelia Clark's Iba says the Holy Glabados Church from FFT. Yeah. Great example. Yeah. Milo Zilla says I think Peeps assumed Sybil was like 16 or something. Yeah. So I know she kind of looks young, but not in the redo. No, she is 25 in the beginning of the game and 27 at the end of the game. Right. So very much a fully developed, able-minded, independent adult. Right. Who's, by the way, an officer in the army and eventually an official paladin of the temple. This is not a child. This is a person who's done a lot of things and accomplished a lot of things, right? So, Deacon Erudite says, not only 2 consenting adults, but 2 active combatants risking their lives side by side. And now we're back to Barnabas. To be clear, not so much the age difference, more the excessive whimsy and kind of felt out of place in the story. Sorry, I didn't know there was the kind of baggage in the conversation. No baggage. I'm just passionate about this stuff. I'm partially Italian, so I'm expressive and I'm loud, and you'll see my hands moving around. But there's no baggage. It's no anger. It's just passion. Speaking of which, I have a craving for pasta. Well, now especially I do. Exanilla says, to be clear, not so much... Oh, you already said that. I already said it. The Deacon Adurgat says, and yeah, that's fair, Milo Zilla. She does feel fairly young initially. Yeah, she's just kind of immature. All right, that's fine. But she's age-wise, she's not immature, right? Tripod Face says, Lal, you tapped onto something and opened up a whole can of worms. What have I done? Okay. Moving on. A quick without friends. The age difference, in my opinion, made Barnabas' relationship with Sybil interesting. If they would have been the same age, it would have been a generic romance. Yeah. The Deacon Unicorn Overload, I think, is sort of compromising by allowing units to develop a bond between one another, regardless of any restrictions, gender, class. But it's not implicitly a romantic bond, but rather a manifestation of strong. Yes, we're gonna do that in this game too. Yeah, we're not gonna. It's gonna be like romance is like only like Stefan Diana level chemistry, where it's like obvious. Boom, that should be a romance, right? But like we're not gonna be like, hey, you two, see if there's some spark there. Like, no, we're not gonna do that. So. Deacon Erudite, understandable if not, though. You got to lean into your strength. Yep. The self-insert MC romance novel group on suicide. I don't know what to tell you. Like, we can't please that audience. You know, I'm inherently a person that wants to, but because you like this game for the gameplay, but I also want you to enjoy that part of it. It's just not going to be a dating sim. It's just not going to be a dating sim, right? So I guess I'm trying to be honest with you up front. If that's primarily what your draw is, then I would say look somewhere else. You know, that is not me being bitter. That's me being like warning you that, you know, if you primarily want the MC self-insert, I want to have, you know, relations with anything and everybody. It won't be this. It won't be this, right? So, just being honest with you. I still hope you enjoy the other parts of it, right? You know, we love this game like it's our own child, right? So, ironically, Team Tem1Up says, ironically, doesn't the war aspect of it make the romance that more intimate? Oh yes, absolutely. It makes bonds more intimate too. Yeah, you know, I'm not a war veteran, but they always talk about the foxhole camaraderie. And, you know, I think that, of course, that would probably apply to some kind of non-platonic, bond as well, of course. Captain NNEM. I love a good story. It's a decent one. I think that your story, if you think your story is bad, look at most available. No, I don't think the story was bad. I think the Symphony of War 2 story is much better. Of course, this is the year 2024, and I wrote that one in 2016. So that's 8 years of difference there. If I had time for every, oh, you're here, go kill a demon lord, I'd be very rich. Right. Exonel, I thought the war aspect made Stefan Diana's romance that much more sincere. It really felt tied with... Yeah, that one is like... Yeah, that's... Everyone agreed with that one. Everyone liked that one. That had to happen, right? Because you saw that cutscene, you know, where he puts his arm around her, even though she seems to be dead, right? It's... I think that's probably the highest point in Symphony of War 1, for me. Yeah, just... I really liked making that cutscene. Just a really, really touching moment. I think that's peak SOW right there in that moment. Blah, 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 blah. Seth92, I would take the negative reviews on romance as a grain of salt. No, I'm not. I don't. I think it's actually valuable feedback. I take it with a grain of salt because, like, I know that I wasn't really inspired to do those things. And so it actually isn't at all surprising that people don't like it. You know, not everybody doesn't like it. Some people like it, but like, you know, going back to the not insulting your audience thing, people just know. You can smell it from a mile away. I know it as a player when something, you know, is tacked on or something that is truly inspired, right? So that negative feedback is really just like confirming what I already knew in the bottom of my heart, right? Deacon Erudite says, you can honor the past without doing a one-to-one rehash. Sadly, they opted for film disrespect to the past. Bit of a rabbit hole topic, though. Oh, yeah. I think every stream has had Star Wars, shitting on Star Wars sequels. Exonel says, yeah, if someone's negative review for romance alone, I think they may have been playing the wrong game. Yeah, you could argue that. I mean, it's a valid review, right? You know, at least they're not saying like, oh, I don't like bald people, so the developer's bald, so I'm gonna thumb down the game. That's ridiculous. But like, you know, if they say like, I don't like the romance, I like Fire Emblem, I like the romances in Fire Emblem. I played this game because I like Fire Emblem, and I thought there would be romances in it, but the romances suck. So then I'm just gonna download it. You know, that's valid. I think that's frivolous, but it's valid at least, right? So, I don't agree with like when I review games, if something like that bothers me, I'll still give it a thumbs up if I think it should be, if I think it's a good game, right? But then in the review, I'll write like the cons. Like, yeah, if you're wanting a dating sim, just don't, you know, like if I write a negative review, it means this is not a good game. It's broken. It's buggy. It's overpriced, right? So. And very few people think that our game is overpriced, buggy, bad in general. Like, some people actually think it just sucks in general, which is fine, you know, whatever. Usually has to do with older graphics, smaller resolution. That's kind of the big thing. Tripod Fate. The story of this game was sets it apart from the rest of the genre. I constantly use it as selling point to my friends' story characters, competitors on Steam right now. Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Thank you. I think romance adds to it, but shouldn't be forced or anything. I have to admit, I caught myself trying to protect my son a couple more. Yep, Stefan Diana. That's a good one. That's a legendary romance within our games, my games. Probably the most touching, most good chemistry romance is Stefan Diana that I've made in any of my games. Speaking of Star Wars, gonna get Sci-Fi 3. I don't know. Lurker Meyer says, glad to hear from vocal fans as the one's history. I also thought it was a strong point. Thank you. The Deacon Error, it says, riffing off a storytelling mechanic, story specifically attempts to subvert expectations by suggesting the previous good guys were in fact the bad guys for convoluted reasons or armlessing their behavior post hoc. Something completely out of character is evil. Yeah, that's for sure. Or doing the opposite thing with the bad guys, right? Or like a Thanos was just trying to help, right? Like, no, Thanos is the bad guy. Right? Can you zoom out the map, please? Yeah, sure. There you go. Pasta, give me some. Oh, I'm finally caught up. D. Valroth, there you are. Okay, that's where I love Deadly Sin 2 as a potential prequel, because it shows a backstory where some of the good guys weren't, but the story was rewritten to make heroes of them because that's what the world needed. I just like that, playing games out of order. Yes, you, Devon, are... I think the only person on the planet who, maybe there's more, but they just haven't spoken up. But that's why we love Devin, because he knows so much about all of our body of work that he was able to make that kind of statement that, frankly, I didn't even plan for. Right? It's just an accident of happenstance. So, right. So, Devin, please stay safe. We love you. Arcane Gunner, thanks for the follow and first time chat. We'll catch up here. Captain Enium says, back to my questions about Symphony of War 2. Any chance of co-op content or multiplayer? Something like here's a certain amount of units and resources, make the most of them while the time frame. Maybe that's a hard one. It would definitely require an engine rebuild. So, Deacon Erudite says, I enjoyed the romances personally, just wanted a bit more scenes and unique gameplay barks to make it more impactful, but beggars can't be choosers. Yeah, sure, of course. First time chat from Arcane Gunner. A bit late to the discussion, but I want to ask, is there going to be any faction-based classes? I don't know about faction-based classes as much as factions. Yes, we are going to have factions 100%. Like, you'll be able to go in on the unit info and see, this is Kingdom of Siena, this is Kingdom of Avangard, this is Viridia, right? So, and then that is a little bit like Age of Empires 2 in that, there's the same unit, but they have different bonuses, and maybe they have different graphics too. So, original 1822 says, hey, at Dungeon Devon Games, Symphony of War MMO when? That'd be awesome, right? Bonuses to factions. Yeah, bonuses and penalties to factions. I really like how DS did the characters all had their flaws. Yeah, I don't know what happened with Deadly Sin 2. It's my lowest performing game of all time, even lower than Deadly Sin 1. But people seem to be the most complimentary of its story and setting of any of our games, except for maybe Skyborn. People love the story in Skyborn. Lurkermeyer says, I'd love to hear if any subsystems listed in W1 aren't going to return in the same way. For example, Nephilim powers are fun. Nephilim powers are going to return, and they're going to be not Nephilim powers, but they're going to be army powers that you can just use, and they're not going to require highly developed story progression. It's just going to be part of your army, right? Yeah, it takes a long time to get there. All right, let's go back to the pinned comment has actually expired, but let's talk about let's get your feedback. So resolution, what we're actually trying to model together some resolution that we can actually look at. Is Mithrin in here? He's not, actually. Must be busy. So we're actually modeling 520 versus 740, right? We're going to do one of those two, probably. And with 540 is 720. With 540, the screen's a little bit bigger, and I think the tactical map looks absolutely beautiful. It looks perfect, right? The sprites, the smaller sprites, are still big enough that they're impactful. The battle size is perfect. All that stuff looks really good. The problem is that we have absolutely stunning high resolution portraits, and we're going to have movies and maybe even animated movies in this game. All that stuff. And the UI. The high-res portraits, the UI, movies, animated movies, those things look worse in lower native resolution, right? Especially the portraits and especially the animated movies, right? So it's started as a calculus of what do we want to look better? The tactical map in the battles versus the high-res graphics, right? And what I'm trying to do is I want to keep the high-res graphics because when they're in 720, they look awesome. When they're in 540, they don't. They just don't. And people will probably disagree with me on that one. They say, I can't really tell the difference. But there's a difference. You lose a lot of visual detail. You lose the freckles. You lose the sparkle in the eye. You lose the smile. You lose the details that really... and those are important because... the cutscenes in this game are not going to be like sprites moving around like RPG style. It's going to be backgrounds with comic panes and large characters that are blinking and talking passively. And so they really make the scene. Like, there's not much background to look at. Like, it's mostly just the portraits, and actually that's enough because they look really good and they're animated themselves. So it's really nice actually as is. It just, if I make that smaller, that takes that away, right? And I want the story to be front and center. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out. Yeah. So Devon says can you not target the pixel art at half the resolution of the UI portraits and just double the pixels? Yes, kind of, but it won't look as good as you think. So if you see some other games that do that, sometimes it looks really bad. There's this free-to-play game. I'm sorry. There are probably fans of this sort of something. It's a free-to-play tactics game. They kind of do that with their battlers, which is unfortunate because I don't think it looks very good. Now if you take just the raw pixel art, that looks fucking great. Like the tiles and the battlers and stuff, but the fact that they had to kind of interpolate the size of the pixels really took away from the visual quality of those, right? So anyone remember that game that is sort of something? It's a free-to-play. I think it's a gacha. But first name chat from Blaze1711. SOW2 will have naval battles, right? Yes. Is there some sort of system of different ship classes or upgrading ships or anything? Yes. You have different chassis, different components, armor, sails, guns, and components. Yeah, you can fully customize your ships. It's going to be awesome. Sword of Convallaria. That's the one. Yeah. Really good looking pixel art. Like those sprites look great. And the isometric tiles look really good, really beautiful, right? But the difference in pixel size to me does not look good. I'm sorry, right? So that's not a judgment. I haven't even played the game. It's just that one part of it is like, it's actually very helpful because we probably don't want to do something like that. We want to make something look more unified, right? Sadly, art and certainly pixel art aren't my strong suit, but okay, so the thing we're discussing is if you do 720p resolution, then you are going to have very large maps, right? Now think about Chapter 26 or Chapter Legends 1B in Symphony of War 1. They're huge maps. Now, even those really huge maps are barely bigger than the minimum map size in 720p. If you want to fill the full screen, does that make sense? So you have, your that would be 720p. So here's Symphony of War 1 map, right? And then this would be, but the tiles don't get any bigger. It's still 32 by 32 pixels. So now you have to fill in that many more. Whatever. You have to fill in that many more tiles, right? And in addition to that, the 32 by 32 little sprites that represent squads are smaller compared to the screen. So what we're trying to do is figure out, okay, maybe we can go with the smaller minimum, so that way the screen is this big, but the tactical map is this big, maximum, right? But that means we have space on the outside. What do we put in there? Do we put UI elements in there? Do we just put a nice looking background in there? Like in Final Fantasy Tactics, you just have this endless void, but then you have this like border, this isometric border where it shows like the ground, right? So it looks like a floating island and it works, right? Can't cheat by occupying some of the screen with your squad commanding units high def splash art. I mean, just throw the ideas out. I think it's, yeah, sure. High detail environment in the border could look great based on which squad you have selected. So it's 520, but gives the illusion of 740. I mean, we now have on board a really good digital artist who can just create a background, and we could have different backgrounds for where we are in the world. I think that's a great idea. Decorative border you would at least have to have that, right? And probably some kind of drop shadow, and then a background for where you are in the world, right? But then people would go, I just want to see the full screen. Well, try to imagine I'm trying to make a Symphony of War 1 sized map in the screen this big, and so you have to have that much filler of like empty trees and houses and mountains and clouds and water. You know, all the stuff that the places where you can't walk, it has to just be tons of it on the outside, and it just looks terrible. You don't want that, right? So there has to be some balance between, allowing you to view that much more space, but not have just this ugly giant expanse of non-navigable tiles on the outside of the playable area in the middle, right? So there's that. I welcome you to please, go ahead and leave feedback here, but also in our Discord, we'll talk about that more. I am leaning toward it will be 720p, because if it's 520, then the really, really beautiful stuff that we already have and are planning on getting, like I want to have 2 or 3 animated movies. I want to, because that's kind of what the story demands. And the difference between 720p and 540p in an animated movie, oh my God, that's the biggest difference you'll ever see. Because, think back to like the 1990s, like CD-based PC games where they have those crappy old movies that actually popped out a different window and they had really low resolution. It looks terrible, right? So you want to have higher resolution for those stuff, right? And we don't want to have a separate window for movies. We want to have it just be part of the game. So it may be an old school game, but it's not really old school. It just has a low budget compared to AAA games, right? So because we want to make it modern, new school, right? And you really don't want to have some smart ass trying to fly over it with dragon riders. Yeah. Blaze 1711 says perhaps add some more decorative units battling each other in the background to just increase battle size scale. Captain Indium says have played plenty of games with borders. Unless you want to increase the size of the sprites, can't do that. It's probably the best option. Okay. We have very high standards, so we just want the perfect system. Deacon Erdai says it's selected squad's commanding unit, main cast character, highest tier unit occupying part of the screen with a high def art, maybe with their expression tied to the current squad health condition. Yeah, sure. Again, definitely isn't more area of expertise. It's not my expertise. It's no one's area of expertise unless they're like a 30-year veteran art director for Blizzard or something. Maybe not Blizzard. Maybe Riot or something. About resolution, you think Steam Deck may have issues with it at first, or is it something that development has already noted down? Steam Deck is actually not at all a worry because it's actually in 720p natively, but they have an 800 screen. They've actually managed to adapt their, like everything looks good on Steam Deck. Like even our 480p for Symphony of War 1 looks great on Steam Deck, right? Switch might be the issue because Switch is going to be moving up to 1080p, I think, pretty soon. And it already does for the docked mode, so yeah. But we're, PC first. We'll figure that out first. By the way, it's highly unlikely that Nintendo Switch 2 will release this year or so. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's whatever. Oh, will that change the development in any way? Usually means no, it won't matter. We're getting on Switch when we can, so. UI widget maestro. Well, that's the thing is if we put a UI widget in those outside borders, then we have to, if you go into 520 resolution, which we might do a dual offering, you can go in 520p or you can go in 720p, then we will have to put those UI elements inside the tech map in 540p, right? So Tripod Face says, hi, I'm a 30-year-old art director for Riot Blizzard. I think the guy's idea about battles being extended into the background scene is a really cool idea for certain maps, but not all. Oh, really? Let's see your resume. Anyway, so that's the one thing. Now let's shift gears. We're going to talk about, do I still have Devin and Advil here? You guys still here? Kind of the dual Grand Wizards. No, not Grand Wizard. That's terrible. Not like that. No, Master, or we'll say Master Archivist. They're just a couple of smart guys that know everything about our games, and they're really good at the games, and so sorry, Master Archivists. Let's just say that. let's move on. So let's talk about blah, 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 blah. Unit capacity. That's a big one. Okay, so I hope you guys are here. We want your feedback on this. This is really, really an idea that's solid. We've been talking about this. We've been going back and forth on this like nonstop, and we're super passionate about what we're going to do to change this to unit capacity, trait capacity, squad traits, and unit traits. Okay? So it's complicated. But try and bear with me here. So maybe we'll do it one step at a time. Squad traits are going to be a thing. We are removing leader traits from units. Gone. So you're not going to see soldier captain. You're not going to see leader only traits on units. Now we are not removing traits from units like your barricade and defender and beacon and all that stuff, right? Those are still a thing. Okay. Now, where are the leader traits going? Those are becoming squad traits, right? And squad traits will be scrolls or books that you can equip onto a squad. Nothing will involve using a consumable scroll or a book like they do. So you won't feel pressure to save your scrolls and save your tomes. You're just going to have equipable traits that go onto squads or they go onto units. You follow me so far? So that's already a big difference, right? First time chat from Pharmacy Sabrina. That makes sense. Give us a follow, please. Thanks for being here. Big improvement so far. Following. So the new squad traits can be freely swapped around, unlike the leader traits. Yes. So there's a thing called elixir syndrome. We're never going to use this elixir, even though it fully restores. You're never going to use the mega elixir. Restores all status and HP and MP to the whole party, but you never use it. Why would you not use an item like that? Because you might need it later, but you're on the final battle. Well, you might still need it later, right? So elixir syndrome. So we love that change. We're sticking with that change, okay? Now, we also have leadership as a stat. We do not like how it works in Symphony of War 1, where you just keep piling it up, and it applies to both artifacts and unit capacity. So, we're going to do a major change to leadership. First of all, it's going to level up more slowly. Second of all, well, more importantly, it's only going to confer trait capacity. Trait capacity only. How does that hit you? So when you go into your squad... Nani? When you go into your squad management, you're going to see trait capacity at the squad or unit level. Trait capacity at the squad level. And they will be more impactful than unit traits, okay? And you have never seen these squad traits before. It'll be something like the front row shares damage. That's a squad trait. The front column, regardless of whether there's any units in it, shares damage. Now, you have something like that in Symphony of War 1, but it's the front row. It's not the front column of the squad territory. It's the people in the front, right? So it's a territory positioning-based trait. So you haven't seen stuff like this before. Now, you'll have a capacity, and some traits will take up the entire capacity, and that's based on your leadership stat, right? Or it could change to a tactics stat or something, right? What would be a very expensive trait? Probably Soldier Captain. But the way we're doing Soldier Captain in this game is you get one free heavy infantry. And it takes up your most or all of your trait capacity, but you have a free heavy infantry. No questions asked. Right? So now you could remove Soldier Captain and then replace it with a bunch of smaller traits that don't give you an extra, because an extra unit is very powerful, right? So now, how do you determine the number of units in a squad? That is based on your rank. So your army will have a rank, and it's going to be just like in the first game, but there's going to be more ranks. So it happens more often, like maybe once, even twice after a chapter, every single chapter, right? So at least 30, 40, 50 ranks, right? As you rank up, your capacity for squad capacity, will increase. So an example of that, we don't necessarily have to use U.S. military army ranks for this, but let's just do that for the sake of talking about this feature. So you'll have army ranks. Let's just say a low rank sergeant, a middle rank lieutenant, and a high rank general. So a sergeant will have the capacity for 5 units, or it'll just have 5 capacity, and then you can put anything in there, like 5 small infantry, 4 cavalry, 3 beasts, stuff like that, right? A lieutenant can have 7 capacities, so you put 7 infantry, 5 cavalry, 4 beasts, right? A general has 9 capacity, so you can get your death ball as a general, your 9 infantry units, right? Hey, Lambert, welcome. Glad you made it. So now, as you're building your squad, you won't have to then assign a rank to a squad. It'll just automatically happen. So if your army rank lends itself to having 1 general, 2 lieutenants, and 3 sergeants, let's say you have no squad built. Okay, the first squad you built is going to say 0 out of 9 because that's the highest possible capacity you have because you have 1 general rank available, right? So you won't really have to think about it. It'll just be there visually represented. So then you start filling up the units. You go, boom, 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 boom. 9 infantry are now in that squad, and it'll say 9 out of 9. So that's your general, and it's done. Now you only have 2 lieutenants and 3 sergeants left. So the next squad you build is going to say 0 out of 7. And then you build that 7, and now you have your lieutenant, right? But you didn't think about it. You just put the units in, right? It's going to tell you what your capacity is. Then you do it again. You build another lieutenant. Now you have 2 lieutenants of 7. And now you only have 3 sergeants. So then the fourth squad you make is going to say 0 out of 5 because that's the sergeant capacity. Does that make sense? So it really removes the micro from that. But we're trying to take away the chore. We think it's just a chore. The thing that you just do, not the thing that you choose to do or that you really have fun doing or that you want to do, but it's just the thing you do. You just got to do it, right? Is getting your leadership up and getting up to 9 units. That seems like a chore, right? And it's the biggest power creep. It's the biggest power differential is adding more units because the stats are so similar, right? So it controls that flow a little bit better, right? Let's see. If you like 12 units, you can have a fit dark mage, an oracle, usually then 2 healers. Sometimes. First time chat, J Lodge 01. It'd be nice if leadership didn't grow based on capturing objectives. It's a bit annoying feeling pressure to have certain squads do the capturing. Yeah, you just rank up your whole army and that affects everybody. Give us a follow, J Lodge 01, please. Deacon Erudite, I see where you're going. As someone who can never have too much personal choice, I can't help but dearly miss the ability to break up unit counts as I see fit. I understand what's going on into this. I don't hate it. I'll just miss the previous freedom. So I don't think there's any loss of freedom. Right? if you want to have a larger squad, because the game is already pre-sorting it for you. They're saying you have one squad that can get to 9, then you have 2 squads that can get to 7, and you have 3 squads that can get to 3. You don't even need a leadership sorting system to see who's a good squad leader in that case. It's just what you have, and you just make the squad, right? To get more squads that are bigger, you rank up, right? And you rank up by achieving objectives and surrendering and stuff, the same way we do in the first game, right? Blaze 11, you also, would it be nice to have a squad system where if you have certain combination of units, the squad can gain hidden new traits? For example, having all sentinels up front can give the defensive... not a bad idea. Yeah, I like it. I think that would more depend on what your squad traits are, and then you would slot into that, but yeah. It might be... Like, you're talking about combo... Like, class combos? Yeah, class combos might be a new thing, yeah. Maybe. Lurkermeyer says, it might be nice if you can nudge your selection of generals, lieutenants, whatever, using army tech. Of course. Oh, yes. Yes, you can. Arcade Gunner, feels like it'd be better to choose which rank of unit on squad creation, or perhaps reassigning ranks during the edit. So you want... So I'm hearing that you want to be able to manually assign ranks to a squad, despite the fact that that is an extra step of micro. Is that what I'm hearing? That you'd be okay with that level of micro. That way, folks want to break things up more and could invest each in more in that direction. Talking about the modifiable sphere grid of army tech. Yeah. Oh, that'll be in there for sure. I like the idea of not having to micro everything. Just call me Blaze. That's my name on Discord too. Gotcha. Will be much easier to pick up for newer players. Right. Yeah, so we're not 100% on that part of it. What we really like, the idea of controlling the out of control growth. Well, not controlling. That's a bad word for it. It's making the squad capacity decision meaningful again. Apologies for sounding a little bit like Make America Great Again there. Make squad capacity meaningful again. Okay, so that's a slogan I can believe in, right? And by removing the chore of just pumping your leadership, like something you just do, like you just should do, that's just kind of boring. Like you want to be able to have to think about and make those calculations. That's the fun part. Like you figured out how to make it work with just a bunch of sergeants, right? Right. Yeah, and by the end, like if you're at max army rank, you'll have like at least 6 generals. So you'll have your death balls, so don't worry about it. Okay. Advil says, manually assigning the rank means it makes more obvious that your squad building action is going to impact your subsequent squad. Okay. Let me get my brain ready to read this one. Manually assigning the rank makes it more obvious that your squad building action is going to impact your subsequent squad creation. Okay? By virtue of you building this 9-stack, your next squad will be a 7-stack automatically, etc. Having non-full squads by the end makes me feel dirty, as does not having anything to do after I have full squads. So hopefully we can avoid both of those. Can you... Okay, I'm not smart enough to... I'm Can you make those into examples for me? Because I know where you're going with it. You're saying that there is a difference in the player's perception of what they're doing based on whether or not they have that micro step or not. Like if they just gets built for you, then their perception of squad building is different. And maybe it's less satisfying. Is that what you're saying? If they don't then choose the rank, then they feel like they have less control over building that squad. Is that what you're saying? Because in the first game, you do have that control. You just pick the leader, and that leader has the capacity for units. So, now that we're talking about it, I feel like maybe we should just do Symphony of War 1 style, but with way less runaway capacity. Because that's just, you won't be able to convince me out of that. It is a runaway capacity, and it's compounding capacity that just makes death squads too easy to get and too much of a thing that you do. Rather than, oh my gosh, I figured out this cool, clever thing, and now I have a death ball. Because it's not hard. It's not hard. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want you to be like, hey, I bested the game. I figured out how to get the death ball, right? So, because right now, no one cares if you got the death ball. It's not special, right? So, Captain NEM says, let me go back. Also, would a system of squads gaining squad traits like good or bad habits make sense? Example, if squad keeps killing a certain type of unit X. Woo! That's a cool thing. Yeah. You should be a game designer, Blaze. I don't know about that one, but that's pretty exotic. Yeah, change all of your arena tokens to bronze and grind for leadership. Reset the shop as saves into. Oh, I know. It is not. I don't think it's a fun, satisfying meta. It just isn't. It's too easy, and it's just something that's on your to-do list, right? Because you just can't not do it, right? So, personally, Pharmacy Sabrina says, personally, I never found raising leadership a chore. It was just like, oh, cool, my leadership reached a new threshold. Now I can add another unit to this squad. The old system worked fine for me. Probably. Yeah. I think maybe it's more of a power gamer concern, where it's just automatic, It's not a meaningful meta. Captain NEM says, that said, I don't think that you actually need to do any leadership grind of Captain difficulty. Warlap Plus, on the other hand, yeah. It's kind of important, especially on Ludicrous. Pharmacy Supreme, mind you, I don't play in the highest difficulties. Advil says, I just want to avoid the situation. Okay, hold on. Advil mode. Hamana. Woosa. Here we go. I just want to avoid the situation where people build the 9 squad because they can, then go to build the next squad and see it. I think that's a typo. I've never seen you typo. What's wrong? And see it that they can they can only a 7 stack, and now they are reconsidering if they should redo the 9 stack now. Okay. Yes, I got it. Okay. Yeah, we don't want that kind of UI fiddling. We don't want that. Yeah, we want it to be like, just like you just have what you have, right? And you have full control over it. So, good point. J Lodge says, it might be worth giving more identity to each squad type. General, just about max quantity of unit. Lieutenant bonus to movement. Sergeant perhaps to bonus movement. Yeah, that's a great idea. And actually, that's in our game design document, where we have some squad traits that are only available to lower capacity units, but we don't like limiting like that. So what we would do is, like, for example, have ambush in any territory. That would be very high cost, depending on increasing number of squads. So if you have a death ball of 9, it would be extremely expensive to put. You can ambush in any territory if you have a death ball. Now, if you only have 3 guys in your squad, then that trait is basically free, right? So it's not a proportional difference. 9 guys versus 3 guys, it's not 1/3 the cost. It's like 5% the cost, because it's an ever-increasing exponential cost based on more guys in the squad to do things like stealth and ambush, right? Which makes sense. So that's how we would manifest those, which is much better than just putting hard limits on things. We want you to reach the limits on your own rather than us imposing, crushing walls on your creativity, right? So, Advil says, for the general capacity issue, Just moving closer to cranked up on ludicrous settings for costs is much closer to what I would consider reasonable. It takes work, but you can still max things out by the end. Sure. Yeah, I mean, that might be what we do. I don't know. Well, we're very, very early in design. Okay. Decon says, sounds like a passive bounty system. It's not that each specific group has to achieve all bounties, but if they go out of their way to hunt specific enemy types, every type that they've fielded, rewarding them with a buff for it sounds like cool cookies for the game to the player. Now I want cookies. I want Oreos. Can we get an Oreo versus Chips Ahoy, like a definitive Oreo versus Chips Ahoy? Because I feel like Oreos are better with milk because like they're a little bit more, they're tougher, they're more robust. So if you dip an Oreo in milk for a long time, which I like to do, I like to get that kind of mushy, like soaked in milk, and because I like the flavor of the milk too. Oreos do that better because there's more, it's just more structural capacity. Because they have the creamy center. It holds it together, right? Now, you can still leave it in too long, and if you lose the Oreo and you just hold the little top part of it, then that's your game over, man. You got to just empty out the glass of milk or drink it and then find the Oreo. Whereas Chips Ahoy, it's way riskier. Like, you can lose the Chips Ahoy. It's crumbly and it's thin, but I think Chips Ahoy tastes better out of milk. So that's what I'm going with. What do you guys think? Only the Chips Ahoys with Hershey's. 90s Chips Ahoy better than beats Oreo, but now they have lowered the sugar content, so now Oreo wins. Really? I didn't know that. Advil says, I do golden Oreos and fully submerge them into the milk and fish them out with a fork. Jeez. That's that's way more hardcore. Deacon says, brain cooldown therapy, diatribe lol. Oreos all the way, man. Chips Ahoy is excellent, but I'm too biased. Chips Ahoy is trash, IMO. If my chocolate chip cookies are not warm and gooey, they are garbage. Oh, if you have like Costco cookies, the bigger ones, that you microwave those or you put them in the oven, or else you are losing out. You are not living life. Cookie tier list win. Absolutely, man. I will love to do a cookie tier list. Never dipped Chips Ahoy in milk, but they taste pretty without. Yeah. I think Chips Ahoy are really tasty without milk, right? Oreos to me are too sweet, too overwhelming outside of milk. You know what I mean? So I think they kind of need that. And I can only eat like 4 or 5 Oreos maximum in a session. Then I'm tapped out, man, on sugary sweets. Whereas with Chips Ahoy, boy, you can just keep going and going and going, right? So, I have weird allergies, so the only ones I can have are Chips Ahoy with Hershey's. Ah, gotcha. What about the white fudge covered Oreos until they come out? No. You have to have the cookie outside. The cookie crunch on the outside, right? Also, the only type of Oreo is double stuffed. No, Advil, you are wrong. I disagree. Double stuffed Oreos is even worse because I can only eat like 2 of those and I'm tapped out. Deacon says, it would settle a bounty system that rewards squads with ever-increasing stacks of Oreos, taking down specific enemy types. Yeah. So, okay, so the last thing, we're almost 2 hours. Holy shit. Last thing I want to talk about. So, disclaimer, none of this is in the game. None of this is decided upon. Oreos went vegan? What does that even mean? Like, as there's no meat in the in the cream filling. Oh, right, it is that, because the cream filling used to be like gelatin, right? I was joking, but I think that's actually what it is. Like the cream filling. Hi, first in chat, the parasol. Right, and dairy. Yeah. I gotcha. I mean, if I had vegan Oreos, I would just dip it in milk anyway, and now it's not vegan anymore. So, boneless Oreos. That explains it. That Chips Ahoy has less sugar. Okay, last thing I want to talk about. We don't have a tier list. Last time we did the Disney Princess Death Match tier list. I don't think anyone liked that, but I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun doing it. So, By the way, the winners of that were Elsa. It was a three-way tie between Elsa, Isabel, and Louisa, because they're all three of them are basically gods or like demigods, but one of them is ice, one of them is nature, and the third is physical. So Elsa is the physical powerhouse, or no, Louisa is the physical powerhouse, Elsa is the ice powerhouse, and Isabel can control nature. And so Elsa beats Isabel. Isabel beats Louisa, and Louisa beats Elsa. So it's like a triangle, right? Because it's really hard, because Louisa's main weapon is a punch, and you can't really punch a plant. It doesn't really do much, but you can shatter ice with it, right? But you can wrap a vine or something, a soft vine around Louisa's limbs, and then you have neutralized Louisa. So, and then we said underwater you don't want to face off against Ariel. So, anyway, all right, last thing. Items. What are items? We like items. We like finding things. We like finding swords. We like finding trinkets. We like finding jewels and gems and gold. We like finding ancient tomes of magic. We love that stuff, right? That's just a staple of RPGs that'll never go away. I love finding and customizing and upgrading swords, shields, armor, trinkets, jewelry, blah, 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 right? Now, with that in mind, this is kind of my idea. I think I convinced Mithrin on this one, but we may not end up doing it. But I've come up with a way to accomplish several things with equipment for individual units. Yes, you heard me. Equipment for individual units. One slot. Okay? Now, the obvious response to that right off the bat is, holy shit, micro nightmare. Because every unit has an empty slot. Maybe some units have 2 empty slots, like a generic, right? And you have to put an equipment in every slot. All 200 of your units. Well, we don't want that. So how does this even work, right? Okay, well, Devin, you just ruined my whole reveal. I got to stop inviting these guys because they make my brain work too hard and they spoil the surprise, right? So I feel like, okay, I don't even know if Devin and Advil are real. I think they're just literally voices in my head. Or they're like an AI that somebody has made to fuck with me. So if you guys can prove you're real, have at it. So Lurker says, I've been won over by individual unit equipment. I'm looking forward to it. My only concern is there's always a generically best option, like you get a magic user book and then just admit, yes. I would love movement, increasing items that don't crush your morale on turn 2. That's a good thing. Less chance to break a unit. And you can grandfather newer units into the progression. Advil says, if I'm an AI, someone really needs to tweak the algorithm. Advil, that sounds like exactly what an AI would say. That sounds very AI-ish, just saying. I'm getting more sus. Anyway, so... yeah, the medicine exists. Yeah, the headache medicine, for sure. Jury's still out on this individual, so... okay, so... 1... We like the idea of non-committal traits to squads. We all like that idea. You guys said in the feedback, great idea. Mithrin and I love the idea. We don't like consumables because that's elixir syndrome, okay? That's 1. 2, stat increasing consumables in Symphony of War 1 are not my favorite feature because A, Symphony of War is primarily we want you to go wide instead of tall, right? We want you to actually use your army instead of just stacking like ultra powerful Lich Princess from Ogre Battle type units, right? They can just wipe out the entire enemy in one hit. We want you to go wide. We want you to have at least 8, 9, 10 for a small army of squads, right? Some people are crazy enough to want 15 and 20, right? So stat increasing items is a weird thing because we don't want you to just like some story units, like, okay, the obvious one that sticks out to me is Beatrix. Everyone knows that I was going to go straight to Beatrix because Beatrix can single-handedly wipe out everything. If you just put Syncredo on her and then protect her with dragons, she's fucking off to the races, right? So we don't want Beatrix syndrome, right? Let's see. Consumables. So, yeah, and the thing about consumable setup items is also that they are consumables and they're elixir syndrome, okay? So, we want to have equipable items do both stats and traits for individual units. I'm going to let that digest for a bit. I'm going to go check up on the family. I'll be right back. Hold on a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. All right. We're back. Let's see. Hoarding either. Here's the other thing: reusable consumables, a health potion, auto triggers. You can be from dying once per. You can still have consumables, but there's less than leader syndrome. The community will greatly appreciate you protecting us from our fear of commitment by giving us mostly reusables instead of consumables. Okay. I have always used the consumables to get the ranks up a few levels early. Yeah, that's not a thing in the next game. There's not going to be stat-based rank ups or class ups. So it removes that whole thing. Pharmacy Sabrina says, "Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Advil PM. The medicine aids like Advil should be ideally taken with food, but the sleep aid is best taken at bedtime. The combination is bad drug for timing." Oh, says the Pharmacy Sabrina. I'm guessing you're a pharmacist. Advil says stat requirements are going away. At least I heard. Yep, you're right. Our units, Lurkermeyer says, our units going to have affinity. We don't know. Do you guys like affinity or not? We don't know. Oh, we're playing with the idea of personality, actually. Timid, reckless, bold, whimsical, stuff like that. Personality. Let's see. Deacon. Okay, it sounds like equipment is a kit idea that guides a unit into more specific roles of combat, map traversal, perhaps. Dagnet. Talk amongst yourselves, huh? So crazy weather we're having, right? Device says, that sounds good. A way to tweak a specific unit, especially since you don't have to hunt for stats or class changes anymore. Lurkermeyer says, although with class upgrade stats are going away, that won't be a factor. Captain says, yeah, change something to Dark Fire Lightning and meet the requirements. Then, yep. The Parasol, I had Elixir Syndrome with element tones in my first playthrough, but I learned how dumb. Miles though says that'd be my main worry, but once the sequence makes it much easier. Devon says I hoard everything in every game just to use it. I don't absolutely need it. J Lodge says I didn't love the old affinity system. Personality sounds better. Fire affinity being bad for fire mages was always odd. I love your idea of the personality. I would take that. Personality would get rid of the assumption that elements influence something else. Pharmacy tech actually, but I'm autistic. I'm also autistic and medicine stuff. My favorite. Gotcha. Affinity kind of represented personality, and yeah, it did. Yeah, actually, personality. I like the affinity, but I feel like it usually just another thing on your to-do list. Usually, there's always one right affinity for each type of. Yeah. Okay. So we timid. What would timid be good for? Finding treasure. Because you're too busy running away from battle, but now you're looking for trinkets and stuff. Whatever, you know. What was the personality as its traits, so long as timid has negative connotation as or reckless has negative connotation, like doesn't follow orders, stuff like that. I gotta go soon, but okay. So we wanted to keep the player's ability to, as we keep calling it, fudge with the stats, right? 5 stats in this game is actually quite a bit. Like 5 to 10 it's a huge amount of stat change, right? Like 10 strength. So we wanted the player to be able to fudge the stats, right? So, but we don't like the roast beefs, right? But you guys didn't really use the roast beefs for fudging stats. You used it to do class ups, right? Or after you were done doing that, you just stacked all of the roast beefs on Diana. What happened? Did my camera just go out? What happened to Twitch Studio? If you're in Discord, can you let me know what's going on? Can you still see the stream? What happened to the stream? Can somebody DM or not DM me, just in anywhere in Discord, can you tell me what's going on? My screen just went gray you're still fine on stream? What the fuck? Why did it go gray? All right. Sure. All right. Well, I'll just wrap it up then, and then I'll upload this to YouTube or something. Okay, we'll wrap it up. So the item would take care of both the stat fudging and the traits. So the sword of whatever will have this trait and that trait, maybe 1 to 2 traits, maybe, and then it'll have like plus strength, minus magic, or whatever. So, and there'll be tons of items, tons of item combinations. We are actually playing with the idea of having some kind of forge that you can customize items, merge them together, get salvage material to use to make new items, that sort of thing. So you would have, so the downside that I want to ask you guys is, would it take away from the love that you put into your army building if a lot of that love goes into the items versus the units? Okay, because that's the one drawback that I think applies to this, because you're building up your people, right? Well, for this one, you're actually building up your swords and your shields and your jewelry and stuff like that. So does that take it away from the charm of it for you? If so, let me know. Okay. Yeah, I think Twitch Studio glitched out. I'm going to wrap it up here. I think, so the only way, I guess, is I'll have to just Control-Delete Twitch Studio, so we'll just do that. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Really appreciate it. If you haven't done the thumbs up on Steam for us, please do. Get us to that 10,000. Greatly appreciate it. Huge way to help us out going forward. Stay in the Discord, please. It's the best way to get the latest information as we develop Symphony of War 2. And have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you.